That was Brunei, Darussalam, Chile, New Zealand, and Singapore. Then in 2008, about five other countries joined, including the United States. In 2017, the U.S. withdrew from the agreement, and 11 countries are left to stand on their own without being able to revive U.S. participation. Now, the reason I thought that it was important to examine this over 2 weeks is to find out really, I was trying to contest Ben's comment that Obama pretty much penciled in this agreement from his executive post. That really wasn't the case. It was something that Obama decided to emerge into, and originally Britain was involved before they pulled out of the EU, and it was supposed to help their economy by about 10 billion a year in UK pounds. So we will get back to that subject later, but I have more pressing news, and I will pull. Don and Ben are holding. They've been holding 5 to 10 minutes. So this is the story. Unfortunately, Ben, you're not on the line yet, but I watched the sentimental Vegas video first, which took up much of my attention. I watched the Saudi Prince link in the second video. So the name of the Saudi Prince, Alwaleed bin Talal, one of the 45 richest billionaire in the world, he was among a group of people arrested on 10 other princes and over 38 cabinet members recently, which caused a stir in the intelligence community. But that's not the factor to his notoriety. The factor to his notoriety is that he manages a kingdom corporation, which I'll get to in a minute, and he's part of a Saudi-based private military company called ETS Risk Management, which privately handles security for his holdings, and he was linked to the Las Vegas shooting in a strange way. There was one video that Ben presented to me that showed that the possible shooting by Stephen Paddock was not in the exact location where they thought all the shots were fired from. And this is the contingency that I'll read about. ETS was on the ground the night of the shooting, which was highlighted. And ETS is a global risk management executive protection company focused on the provision of security for multinational corporations, high net worth individuals, NGOs, and scholastic organizations. But more importantly, ETS is based out of Saudi Arabia, which brings us back to the prince who was subsequently arrested around the same time. His company, in which he's very wealthy, shows with my further research that the Four Seasons Hotel and Resort independently operates 5 floors, and those would be number 35 to 39 in the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino. That's 3 floors up from where the shooter was. Four Seasons Hotel and Resorts is managed by Kingdom Hotel Investments, KHI, which according to their official website is one of the largest and most prestigious hotel management companies. They have been privately held since 2007, both by KHC and the Cascade Investment LLC, a Seattle-based company owned by billionaire eugenicist and gun control Bill Gates, gun control advocate. Each company holds a 45% stake. A third company by the name of Triple Holdings owns the remaining 10%. With a little more digging, we found out that Kingdom Holding Company was founded by His Royal Highness Prince Alwaleed bin Talal. He is listed as the chairman. We have a Saudi risk management firm operating on the ground the night of the October 2nd Vegas shooting, and we have a recently arrested Saudi prince who holds stakes in the upper floors of Mandalay Bay, the very same building in which Stephen Paddock reportedly fired over 1,000.223 caliber rounds into crowd growers who were attending the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival, killing 58. What would be the chances? So I'm going to have Ben do a little more explaining. And I'd also like to express my condolences to Don, who lost a friend this weekend. Good evening, comrades.
Good evening.
Hello there.
So yes, I had to do a little more probing. I used to know a lot more about the Saudi royal family, but why don't you elaborate what you know, Ben, about this situation?
Well, I just know it doesn't make any sense, and I think it really wasn't supposed to make any sense. When have you ever heard a sheriff say, "I'm just going to stick to the narrative. I'm not taking questions. I'm just going to stick to the narrative"? That doesn't make,
Well, I didn't watch the entire dramatic Vegas video. I only watched the complete 5-minute 41-second other video you gave me. I have never heard a sheriff say that.
All right, this was a totally controlled story, and that really just, there's thousands of people that aren't buying it.
Well, my only question is, was the Prince he has a strange name, the Prince Alwaleed, I'm just going to call him that for simplicity, was he arrested by his own company? It's Alwaleed, but I want to say Alwaleed. Was he arrested by his own country or by somebody else?
By his own government.
Right, because they have a younger nephew in there who's trying to institute reforms, and he recently abolished the women driving law.
Right.
Right, and
so
what's happening too is that, as I mentioned, the Saudis are pretty much have been our enemies. They're the ones who conjured up 9/11, so they've been against the West all along. So this is kind of a gentle makeup of what we can expect from the Saudis. Thanks probably to Donald Trump, who's done pretty much everything else. Now, yeah.
By the way, that same Prince Waleed, he also sent Donald Trump 2 direct texts during his campaign saying what an idiot he is and how much he's against him.
Those are tweets, right? Not texts. Tweets.
Yeah, tweets. But anyways, John, I beg to differ with you on one fact. Traditionally, Saudi Arabia has a lot of business ties with Americans, and they've never gotten involved in intimate geopolitics in the region. Like, the only time that they tried to be involved, they got pissed at America one time in the 1973 Israeli war, when America turned their backs and secretly supported Israel. But really, they're pretty neutral. The only thing that they've really been involved with is in the Yemeni civil war, and they haven't really helped out their Muslim brothers in Syria and other crisis spots along the Middle East. So traditionally, Saudi Arabia looks out for number one in a Western-style fashion.
I don't know.
By the way, Media Matters has an article on the same thing.
Media Matters?
Yeah, you've heard of that before, haven't you?
Only in a degrading way.
Well, I'm not going to go over the litany of their contestants, what they're contesting, but I'll just list the top 10 conspiracy theories they have about the Vegas shooting, okay? Shooter was an undercover agent or an intelligence agency that botched a gun-running sting. Conspiracy theory 2. Shooting was a false flag attack from the deep state, Obama's shadow government, and or Bolshevik revolutionaries. Conspiracy 3. Shooting is linked to Las Vegas labor unions. Conspiracy 4. MGM Resorts International is destroying evidence of the crime. Conspiracy number 5. Shooter may have been tied to ISIS and or Antifa. Number 6. Shooter did not act alone. Number 7. Shooter's suicide was staged by police. Number 8. Shooter hated Trump and sought revenge against Trump supporters. Number 9. Shooter was not Stephen Paddock. And number 10. Shooting was a plot to push security devices like metal detectors. I'm not sure what that means.
I think it's a little bit more involved in metal. I think it's a little bit more. It's more involved in metal detectors. We've had metal detectors for 60+ years, or maybe
That's
longer
a good point.
now. It's about the body scan machines that are George Soros's property, the ones that are in the TSA scan.
Right. Don, do you have a comment? Or are you out to lunch? Okay, well,
where'd Don go?
I don't know. Maybe his call dropped. I have to jump back on our studio page. Yeah, I'm going to mute him and then unmute him. Don, are you eating lunch? Okay, let's just continue. He'll jump back in. He didn't hang up. I guess the whole thing is, even if the Saudi prince dislikes Donald Trump, he's wealthy enough to have holdings all over the world. He's not going to expose himself in a way that's going to be involved with a mass shooting. Like, what would that Saudi prince have to gain by that? Except for to hurt Americans. Or maybe the Stephen Paddock shooting was a cover-up of something else that was going on those 4 floors that's owned by the Saudi Arabians.
Well, I heard something about an assassination attempt. It was another theory that there might have been an assassination attempt against him, and all the ruckus was to get him out of there, and something went wrong. I don't know. I have no idea. Nobody knows, because there's too many theories, because there was never enough information released.
Yeah. Well, one of my questions is, do you think Stephen Paddock acted at all?
It's hard to say, because
Don, we were looking for you a few minutes ago.
Oh, I tried to tell you I was on a ride, but
okay.
Yeah, Stephen, I've insisted on this show that Stephen Paddock was not a lone shooter, and that's from all of us here in Nevada a lot of us here in Nevada who have studied all the tapes and video and audio, and there is no way he could have probably done what he did at the time that he said that he would have been practically burning his hands off.
Was he a shooter at all, though? Because if part of the story is false, then how much of the rest of the story is false?
There could very well be a chance that he was just a plant, and everybody else, there were other people who were doing the actual shooting. And Jane, this is an extremely important piece of information that you brought up. with an article stating that the Kingdom, the LLC, Kingdom Holdings LLC, owns those 3 floors. That changes a lot of thinking. Now, you might want to consider if you.
And plus, they have their own private security detail operating that night. ETF.
Right. This is the Saudis, and I mean, when I say that, that's their one of their specialties besides oil is construction and security worldwide. So the Saudis have their hand in, some most major things, with finance. They just collect money. But with everything else, they have their hands in the origins and maintenance and creation of many, many organizations. And how many times have I said that the investment bankers of the UK and what other country, come on kids, who developed Common Core? And that is, I don't hear any answers, the Saudis. The Saudis were one of the main principles of creating the education system that they wanted to go worldwide, called Common Core.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, one of the.
Can you guys talk a few minutes while I change the title? I have an interesting conspiracy to read in 2 minutes when you're done talking.
Alrighty. But Common Core. One of the Hussein is like the brother of, or the brother or cousin, someone who's close to the Saddam Hussein, is one of the major creators or that Common Core, and that's why Common Core is such a bad deal, because it has nothing to do with education and everything to do with money and books, tuition, fees, teacher training. That all goes back into the copyrighted system.
Oh, it has to do more with. It has a lot more to do with compliance than education.
And that's where your security comes in, because it does. It's copywritten. The legislatures, state legislators, can't even change Common Core. So, or couldn't. I've got to update that ESSA is supposedly a softer, gentler Common Core. But for the most part, yes, the security aspect of Common Core with the Saudis is highly compatible, highly likely, and most likely probable. And in my estimation, from all the studies that I've done over last 8 years, it's definite that the Saudis' security firms are behind the Common Core, the security and maintenance of Common Core.
Right, and one thing that video pointed out was that the top floors of the Mandalay Bay is not Mandalay Bay; it's Four Seasons.
Right.
And in the video of the music show, the angle that the camera is looking at is at the stage, and right above the stage, you can see the very top of Mandalay Bay, and you can see a window falling out. And it didn't look like the 32nd floor.
Right. Well,
so if that was in the Four Seasons, then that would be under a totally different security detail, right?
Right. Exactly. And that's from what your potential facts are stating, because I have no idea when you talk about the fact that the Kingdom LLC security force was the force that was on duty, whatever the name that she called it, ETF or whatever, was on duty that night. But like I mentioned, I had a son who went down to the Life is Beautiful concert the week before, and that was on Fremont. And I guess the Gibson Hotel had Paddock's name written in it, but I guess he was in the hotel looking for a site and couldn't find an adequate line of sight. Also, he might have been shooting in a crowd with my son in it.
Well, in the video Ben presented to me, there was a light, a bright, sparkly light shining from 2 floors above Mr. Paddock's room. And
right, and they're saying that
4 rows over.
They were saying that there were more than one, because you had 2 on Paddock's floor, and supposedly the same room. But they said that there was one other or 2 others that they found, or the people at the concert said that they saw. And there are also numerous tapes of taxi drivers. If you know the architecture and design of the Mandalay Bay and the property, the taxis are right under an awning, which is more or less, it both muffles and echoes everything that goes on around it. So it's very, very clear that you can hear more than one location from the shot. And that's
at the same time, there's audio from all the way across, from inside the venue. Someone ran away from the shooting and hid under the bleachers, and you can hear perfect audio of the gun that's going off above the taxi. That's far, far away from wherever this person is hiding. But then you can hear another gun open up, which sounds like maybe 20 yards away from them. So on the ground also. They overlap.
Okay,
you can hear the one that's far away because... Okay.
This is kind of lethargic, this explanation. By the way, Albert's on the line, but I want to read this one new conspiracy theory that makes more sense to me. Now, I'm going to just briefly skim over this person who wrote the background. Before King Salman of Saudi Arabia, there was King Faisal, who had a son, Prince Alwaleed bin Talal, the one we've been discussing. When King Faisal took ill, he named his brother Salman as king in his place. In turn, King Salman named his son as heir to the throne instead of his brother's son, Prince Alwaleed. Alwaleed is Wahhabi. Salman is Sunni. Wahhabi is the extreme version of Islam. King Salman wanted a more blah, blah, blah. So I'm just going to skip that. In Las Vegas, Prince Alwaleed owned the upper floors of the Mandalay Bay Resort, including the 32nd floor, which was one of the points of shooting at the Strip. I say one of the places because the witnesses were all correct. There were other locations too. The Mandalay Bay has a helicopter pad on the roof. That is important because that was the escape route after the carnage. Paddock, the alleged shooter, was a pilot. He was also a gun runner between the Philippines and the U.S. He was running guns for Prince Alwaleed. Paddock didn't have his fortune at the casinos. His millions came from smuggling. I had learned that on the night of the attack, King Salman was in Las Vegas, the one who was actually the king. I didn't know that part until after the show. I received a missing piece of information. Salman was at the Tropicana. The FBI knew Paddock was running guns. They were tipped off, but they didn't know there would be an assassination attempt on Salman, the real king, by Alwaleed just down the Strip. Paddock brought the guns as he usually did, but instead of getting paid this time, he was killed. He was victim number 1. The guns were used to shoot at the country music venue to create chaos and distract from the real target at the Tropicana, King Salman. Alwaleed's assassins shot from the Mandalay Bay, but they were also at the Tropicana trying to kill Salman. That explains why there were shooters on the ground as well as in the air. Remember the videos of the helicopter flying over? I asked why a helicopter would be there when there were a shooter high up. It wasn't the news or the cops, it was the assassins who ran up the stairs to the roof from the 32nd floor. Remember they sealed the door to the stairwell? Paddock had access to the service elevator because the boss said he could use the elevator. Nobody questioned him. Meanwhile, the assassination attempt on Salman failed. Now we are seeing the result of the failed attempt. It was not only an assassination attempt and a terror attack, but an attempted Saudi coup. That is why everybody shut up in Vegas. And blah, blah, blah. Then they said the response is still going on. What do they mean by an attempted coup? It's not like the Saudi could really take over the whole U.S. by one corner of the city.
No. It was a coup with the king outside of his country, and he would never be back. That's the coup. It wasn't anything in the United States. This
would require further investigation, and which I don't have time to do right now. If there were any shootings or sights of people with guns over at the Tropicana or in that vicinity.
Well, the thing that's very, very interesting, this is all falling into place. Thank you very much for, inadvertently bringing this topic up. But this is falling into place because if you know, again, the land, the Tropicana is, and where the windows are, is straight at the Mandalay Bay. It's
and
right
so the Delano. Where's
Yeah.
You can see the Delano right next to. That would be the other vantage point.
Exactly. So this is very, very interesting information, and it's just adding to the incredible lies or lack of offering evidence in this case. And we're going to be looking at another JFK if we're not careful.
No, we'll get the full story in like another 60 years.
People care less about, except for the innocent victims, people care less about King Solomon than they do JFK.
Yeah, but it would have the same kind of effect on the U.S. This is in a way a coup in the U.S. because our oil production, we're producing more than we ever have in history. Yet our supplies are still high enough where we have our prices at 55 now, which isn't good enough for profit making. So if we can squeeze the Saudis into some kind of concession where they are actually forced to produce less or bring down their prices so that we can be more and more competitive, that is, in a way, a worldwide global coup for American oil over, the dominant economic oil of our day besides, Norway and Russia. So those are, this is incredible if all of these things are even remotely true.
Yeah.
They're remotely true. You can't fake that. You can't fake who owns a multi-billion-dollar business, or several of them.
Yeah.
I'll bring Albert in quick. Okay, here's Albert. Good evening, Albert. How you doing? Albert? Albert! Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Well, I brought him in, but he's nowhere to be found.
Yeah, he's probably running around the house doing something. Getting ready.
Yeah.
Probably researching.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, hello, Howie. But no, this is
Alwaleed. It's Alwaleed. Alwaleed. So, do you guys have any more theories while I'm trying to edit this stupid show? I didn't mean it like that. I'm just trying to get all this information in there.
There's one thing other that's kind of disturbing is that the entire team that's responsible for this.
I've got it right.
Okay.
Okay, we heard you. Yes, Ben.
So the FBI team that's heading up this investigation, I guess it's technically over now, but the same team is the same team that's in the courtroom every day with the Bundy hearing. Or the
How
trial.
did you find
the trial
that
started.
out?
Well, it's the same district. It's all the same group of people.
That's a good point.
And the other thing that's strange is that they locked down the morgue. They didn't let anybody talk to or go inside the morgue or anything. There was journalists that tried to get in there and ask questions, and it's on lockdown.
For all the people who randomly died at that concert?
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty scary. I guess,
Right.
you know the first video you sent me with all the how Vegas all came together and how everybody was sentimental?
Mm-hmm.
What were you trying to get me to learn in that video?
Actually, I wasn't trying to get you to learn anything. I just hadn't seen that before. I didn't know there was basically that many victims that gave interviews, because I haven't heard any of them, hardly. I've heard a few, but I didn't know there was a whole program dedicated to it. So I just sent that also.
Okay. I'm a little distracted right now because I'm trying to edit this show, and I can't do it. It's still messing me up. Okay, well, can you just keep talking for a second till I get this straightened out?
Oh, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah,
all right.
I've been trying to talk to you for a few minutes.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I was running errands, running around, taking care of errands, but I'm here if you want to ask me a question or not, but whatever.
Well, we were talking about there's a new conspiracy theory that King Salman, the real Prince of Saudi Arabia, was in Las Vegas the night of the mass shooting, and Prince Alwaleed bin Talal, his relative, who owns 4 floors of the Mandalay Bay and had security detail there that night, may have been involved in the shooting beyond Stephen Paddock. Have you studied any of that?
No, it's kind of coincidence that he's there, but no, none of that.
The guy, he's the 45 richest person in the world, and he's a billionaire. He has holdings all over the world. But there was attempted coup d'etat of killing the authentic Prince of Saudi Arabia that night.
Well, what I remember, because, from 9/11, a lot of those plane hijackers were from Saudi Arabia, and, it was a proven fact, and now there's a big event that just happened, in Las Vegas. And, somehow Saudi Arabia has some kind of, not direct involvement, but, coincidence over there, but, it seems like these big events are somehow linked to Saudi Arabia.
Well, Vegas is still an unlikely place for a terrorist attack. There's never been one ever there. But the only connection that we have is the financial holdings by this Saudi prince.
Well, now there has, and it happens to be the most deadliest mass shooting in history.
Yeah, and when 9/11 happened, they were quickly to blame it on Al Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, and sure the terrorists, of course, but they were quickly to blame that everything came from there and there, why they kept them buying oil from Saudi Arabia and supporting Saudi Arabia and whatnot, and blah blah blah. And now a couple of years later, now we know those terrorists from the 9/11, and Saudi Arabia, they come from Saudi Arabia, which is odd because the terrorists that we were led to believe were supposedly in not Pakistan, the country above Pakistan, Afghanistan. Yeah, Afghanistan. We were led to believe they came from Afghanistan. Nope, Saudi Arabia, which is and now there's a big event, another big event that I mean,
you can't blame Al Qaeda or ISIS or any of the terror organizations on no evidence, and that this is very interesting. That the guys from Saudi Arabia were here, so it makes it very, another big event.
The thing about Saudi Arabia, though, is in some ways it's a very developed country, but just like Bin Laden himself, who was self-educated in a sense, well, he did have some Western learning, but Saudi Arabia harbored terrorists, and I'm sure they didn't have the type of intelligence system America has, but a lot of those people that came out of Saudi Arabia, what?
They're involved with our intelligence. They're directly involved with some of the most highly technical programs and AI development and all of that.
Well, let me put it this way, because first of all, let me go back to Bin Laden's family owned some oil. They were involved in oil companies, and somehow they got taken out. But here's the thing: Saudi Arabia and Iran are basically in a proxy war, which is they're not fighting one another. They're supporting other countries there are against one another against them. And so we look at what's it called? Syria. We look at Syria, right? Look at Syria, where there's a big proxy war going in Syria, and Iraq provides weapons and equipment, like tanks and weapons and stuff like that, to the Syrian leader, and I know Saudi Arabia has been, and there's been some kind of evidence, not complete evidence, supporting that Saudi Arabia supported ISIS because they wanted the dictator out of Syria. So Saudi Arabia had to support the opposition, the other side that Iran was supporting, because Saudi Arabia and Iran are basically doing proxy wars against each other. So it's been a lot of said that Saudi Arabia was supporting ISIS.
Right. So they're involved.
Go ahead.
But another weird thing about the night of the shooting is that how can unauthorized helicopters be flying around so low and be able to turn off their transponders without some sort of a reaction? If that happened in any other city, don't you think there'd be like scrambled jets or something to come and see why a helicopter is flying at like 200 feet with a transponder going on and off?
Yeah, that is.
I don't know. All I know is that one thing I learned from the long video that you sent me is that the sound system went off on the stage, then the lights went all black, and it doesn't seem possible that Stephen Paddock's marksmanship could facilitate that to happen before the actual shooting started at a high level.
No, there was a lot of things that did not make sense. Like the singer, Jason Aldeen, told everybody to back up a little bit. And then I was like, why would he say that right before the shooting started? And then the helicopter transponders, there was several helicopters. There was a whole string of helicopters on the radar. And they didn't follow their flight patterns that they're supposed to have. They went all over where the shooting was. So there was a lot that didn't make any sense.
That could have been the privately provided ETS security that we mentioned from the Saudi company.
Yeah.
But they would have to have authority, though, to run those helicopters over American airspace.
And the other thing that was weird was that the promoter that put on the show for Jason Aldeen, they're the same ones that had the other attack happen. I can't remember her name, the young singer. I think there was
the one in England.
Ariana
Grande.
The same promoter, and I think they've also had another incident at another show. So there's just way too many questions that weren't answered.
Well, it's a good thing to ponder. Now, I could probably dig up more dirt, but it would take a few minutes. It's just, do you guys think it's realistic to think that Stephen Paddock was a weapons runner between the Philippines and here, and that the FBI knew about it?
How did he get so much money? I mean, he threw $100,000 to his girlfriend.
Well, he was a
I
million.
don't know.
He owned property in 3 different states.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why we're supposed to focus on Paddock, because the pictures didn't add up to the story. There was an accidental discharge when the team broke into the room, so that means that a gun was fired by accident. Paddock looked like he was shot in the torso. It didn't look like a magnum to the head, and he wasn't dressed for a mass shooting. He had loafers on and like khakis. It wasn't like it didn't look like he planned out to be shooting people all night. He was dressed like he was lounging.
And check this out. The story was that he shot the security guard that was trying to get him, and he had cameras on the door so he can have video footage of anybody that was coming in. He can see anybody coming in before they came in. So he was ready to fight the door to protect himself out the door a bit. I mean, before they even showed up, he killed himself. That's kind of ridiculous because he still had a bunch of ammo ready to defend himself.
And there was no manifesto or anything indicating why he would want to kill people.
And his hard drive was gone.
Wow.
And his house got broken into. Remember that? His house got broken into and burglarized. They weren't watching the house, but they were watching this Campos guy. They had an armed guard 24 hours a day at Campos' house, and he was still able to go into Mexico and back before he had his interview with Ellen.
So we're talking about the security guard?
Yeah, Campos. He supposedly was shot in the leg, even though the pictures don't even look right. The 2 pictures of Campos look like they could possibly be 2 different people that look similar. But if he was shot in the leg, why wouldn't he go to the hospital, and why would he go into Mexico before he even gives an interview?
The other funny thing is the death scene of Stephen Paddock looked like a bad scene out of a David Lynch movie. Or those people who drank Kool-Aid in Guyana. I don't know, there's just something creepy about it.
Well, it's a dead body on the floor. Of course it's creepy.
Well, who would die with loafers on, as you said once?
Well, you see what I'm saying, though? It doesn't look like he dressed the part of being shooting all night like he thought. If this was the plan, why would he just dress like a normal, average,
Right, and if he was part of some kind of gun running situation, why wouldn't he just have jumped in a helicopter on the roof, like they said that was available, and he could have gone down the service elevator or up the service elevator?
Yeah, just none of that makes sense. It never made sense, because as soon as they said, this is the one guy that did it, I already immediately knew that was wrong, because I had already heard videos of 2 different shooters, and I actually listened to the scan that night. Someone actually broadcasted when it was happening live. Yeah, through Twitter, there was a guy that was broadcasting live. He broadcasts all kinds of live chases and everything that's breaking. And
well, I
he was
have
showing
another
it,
question. If that massive artillery was just used as a distraction, why would Stephen Paddock or someone else have had to shoot off 1,000 rounds just to be a distraction? Why couldn't it be like 4 to 6 shots in the crowd? You know what I mean? Because a lot of people didn't even know what was going on at first.
But it could serve as a dual purpose. You can have not only an attempted Solomon's flight, but you can have a terrorist occurrence. So that'd be just making it even more intriguing. That's great.
Well, none of us have the answers, even though we have all the questions. Let's be honest. Now, I have a quick diversion. I'll give you guys 3 minutes to think while I read this. An unprecedented crackdown in Saudi Arabia shows Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is tightening his grip on a future seat of the throne while pressuring ahead with the vision of a nation no longer singularly reliant on income from oil. 11 Saudi princes, 4 cabinet members, and dozens of other royal family members, military and government officials were being held Sunday in what state media described as wide-ranging corruption probe. Among those arrested late Saturday was Prince Alwaleed bin Talal, 62. He's 62 years old. One of the world's richest people with extensive holdings in the West, including Citigroup, Apple, and Twitter. Most of those detained were being held in luxury hotels in the capital, Riyadh. Nothing like this has ever happened before in the history of Saudi Arabia, said David Ottaway, a Middle East fellow at the Wilson Center, a think tank in D.C. Ottaway added that the kingdom is entering into uncharted waters with unknown consequences. So all these rich assholes are being holed up in a hotel while the probe continues. I don't know where that's going to lead.
Well, it just seems weird. That seems really weird when you say he's the 45th richest person, and what is that, 18 billion? So if you're the 45th richest person and you have $18 billion.
Well, I don't know if he has 18 billion. He might have more.
Well, just seems like way too much money.
Well, so much money that he can't keep track of himself.
Well, he's running one of the biggest money-making countries ever. And so 18 billion is chump change. But also he's trying to propose, he is, as we said, he's still among that Sunni Shia fight, war to the death. So, you gotta be on your P's and Q's all the time, always strapped, ready to fight when you're in a situation like that. So that's understandable. That I don't believe that 18 billion is the 45th richest in the world. I'm not sure about that number. That sounds a little bit low.
It does, but it's also pretty high. $18 billion is quite a bit of money.
Right, and that's why he's in jail right now.
And it's probably because it was split between the whole family.
Right. He had holdings in London too. He owned part of the Savoy Hotel.
Right.
I don't really have any much more comment on the story. Maybe you guys do. I'm trying to dig up more dirt.
I'm good. We got anything else to cover?
Maybe we should talk about Al Franken grabbing imaginary boobs.
Oh, I wanted to bring something up. Trump bringing home the the basketball players. Would you guys have done that? If you were
From
Trump?
where? I didn't hear about it.
So 3 basketball players shoplifted in China when they were there for a game.
Oh,
And
I
they've been
did hear
sitting in
about
jail.
that.
Right, they would have had to do 10 years of hard labor, which is different than
What
our
did they
customs here,
steal?
but I don't know, it's something stupid. Like shoes or something, I don't know.
Sunglasses.
Oh.
Sunglasses.
That's stupid.
So,
In China, it's not just stupid, it's life-threatening.
yeah.
If you steal a pair of sunglasses,
If you steal a pair of worn coquettes, it still be takes for cutting your hands off.
But they have
Wow.
less theft over there than we do.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, China. I mean, I hear that in the Middle East sometimes, but I know in China, they have the most, how do you say, journalists in prison. China has the most journalists in prison.
Yeah. But why would Trump let them out? Why would he do that? Of course, it was a humanitarian stunt to please the left for some reason. At the same time as this tax deal.
No, Ben. He didn't do jack shit. That's the whole point. He didn't do anything.
Why did they thank him then? They gave him a public statement. They all 3 of
I'm
them
sure
said
he
the
had
same
something
line.
to do with it, Don.
Well, they're basketball players. I guess they're important to bring back home. I mean, I'm sure there's other Americans that they get screwed over there. I mean, but yeah,
that's not being screwed over. That's if you go to another country to represent.
Got killed. 2 Minnesotans got killed during the Beijing Olympics in one of the town squares. They got screwed over.
Right. Well,
Right, but if you go and steal, that's not you getting screwed over. That's putting yourself in a stupid situation. You don't go to another country to represent your country in a sport and steal.
Well, I say if you steal like a 50-cent cookie and then you're put the death penalty, no, that's being screwed over. You know what I mean? I mean that's an over exaggerated, overdone. That's being screwed over. You know what I mean? A big penalty for a really small fraction, that's being screwed over.
Yeah, but I would never steal in Mexico. I would never do anything illegal in Mexico because their judicial system doesn't operate like ours at all. It's about money, and if you don't have any, then you're screwed.
It doesn't matter if you don't steal. Like if you're in the same car with somebody else, the cops pull you over, and the guy sitting next to you in the car is the one that stole, and you have stolen property in your car, and now they're gonna say, well, we don't know who it is, so we just take both of you guys to jail. So now you're screwed over. So it doesn't matter if you don't steal. You just have to be in the wrong car, in the car with somebody who did it, and you could be screwed over.
Well, it's association too, but I just don't understand what the whole publicity stunt was about. I'm sure they appreciate it, but it doesn't seem like something a president would be thinking about. When he's trying to avert World War III, he gets some petty thief basketball players and brings them back home.
Right?
I don't know.
No, I don't know. What were they? The Lakers, or I don't even know what team they were.
No, it was college.
UCLA.
Okay.
UCLA.
Gotcha.
I got a ride coming.
So you didn't see that, Jane? Or you did? How's it going, Albert?
Well, that's ridiculous. Well, I mean, I guess big politicians, big powerful people watch television too, and maybe if they're big fans of, certain football players or basketball players on television, they might want certain things done for them, So, I mean, if you got the connections and, that reach to do it, you do it,
I guess it just doesn't seem. That's really weird. I mean, the message that puts forward, is just weird for a president to do. Because every president has to think about the repercussions of every decision. So, if you decide to bring home 3 people who stole and basically treat them like, you got them off the hook. So we're condoning theft? I don't know what the message was.
Well, I forget I can't remember the name, but the Prince of Saudi Arabia, one of the princes, they come over to the United States, and they just throw a bunch of money around to these famous people because they like them and they want to get to know. Like Shaquille O'Neal, I forgot what he got, like a diamond watch or something, from the Prince of Saudi Arabia. He comes over and hangs out with these famous stars, and he just buys them really expensive stuff. So and it happened very frequently more than so, man.
And so, with this prince that was in Vegas, it really makes me wonder what the conversation was when Trump went over there. Because I remember that the big party they had when Trump was there, and he gave them a big deal, and they did the sword dance with him. So who was he cozying up to over there? And maybe he said, "I'll deal with you, but you got to get rid of that guy." And maybe the Vegas thing was them trying to get rid of that guy. Because obviously the guy that was in Vegas did not like Trump at all. So I'm sure the deal didn't have anything to do with him.
Definitely not. Where's everybody else?
I have no idea. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, you betcha. Hey,
You guys, I don't have a lot of steam tonight. How about you?
You just left us, huh?
Yeah, I mean,
Someone drugged my soup.
All right, I hear you.
What else?
Did you go have drinks with Bill Cosby earlier?
Well,
Yeah,
he'll put you a Mickey in there.
No, he's not my type.
Bill Cosby is known to put Mickeys in girls' drinks. Yeah.
I had Diet Coke with William J. Clinton.
Oh yeah, Bill Clinton doesn't to do that. He does it different ways.
Yeah, you
One
wouldn't
of
be
my
talking
friends
about
went to the Clinton Library this week, and Hillary and he were there, supposedly.
How did they get away with that? Don't they have ankle monitors on right now?
For what? A shady past?
Yeah.
Oh, their
I don't
their
think
empire is
she's under
crumbling
arrest.
right now.
She's not under arrest. Bill
No.
Cosby, he's not under arrest.
No. Talking about the Clintons having ankle monitors. Do they or not? That's a rumor.
Oh. No, they're not under arrest either.
Well, no, not
either.
Under
arrest.
No, unless the super elite, want to keep tabs on them, but,
Right now,
Yeah,
they're planning a conspiracy in the Puget Sound, so you better look out.
It's been going for a while. I've survived so far.
John, which one of your friends died this week?
There's a family that's one of the more prominent families, if not the most prominent African American family in Reno. and that's the Feimsters. They are very, very. Dolores had 11 children. So, and she was here in 1959 or something like that. So she's got a big, or has a big imprint in all of Reno. And her second youngest son passed away this morning of complications from diabetes.
And how old was he?
There's a difference in information, but he's probably around 50. He's probably around 55. So we're looking at the fact that he was a relatively young man, but he was instrumental in some of the organizations that I was in. He was very active in the NACP before Pat and I more or less took over more or less from his brother and Lonnie Feimster. But we are.
Did you say their last name was Teamster?
No, Feimster with an S. Same kind of.
Because last week we were talking about unions, so I was a little suspicious.
It's Feimster.
It's a synonym, but it's with an S.
You mean it rhymes? It's not a synonym.
Right, it rhymes. I'm sorry. And so
You did drink a roofie, didn't you? Did you roofie yourself?
Roofie? Not today.
No, Jane.
Oh no, she might have.
Teamster rhymes with Teamster. That's a synonym.
She's in a real good space. She's in a real good space, isn't she? Good.
Don rhymes with wand. That's
Did they legalize something? Did they legalize something new over there?
I think she just admitted it that she was on.
No, I just said I ate 6 snow pellets.
Okay. From a radioactive bunny.
Wow.
You guys are whack. I know.
We're whack.
I know what we could do for the rest of the show. We could predict 5 future conspiracies in America.
Oh no, we can. Yeah, but the main thing is death. All of these people who are, a lot of people around my sphere are starting to die, and how death affects politics, because in a way it's affecting me extremely. Both me and Pat, my wife, they're looking, not so much because of death, but they're looking for her to pick up a lot of energy in our community here. And she might be asked by the party to run for either county commission or possible city council. So we've got
good. Then she'll get a salary.
Right. Well, the problem is, bottom line is that there's some things involved with that. So the bottom line is that we're getting involved with it. Whether we want it or not, we're getting more and more involved because people are either dying or retiring or moving on, and it's quite a natural process, but it's intriguing because they're actually asking for our input and more into the affairs. Before, when we were neophytes in our community, we weren't asked to do anything but sit down and shut up and listen. But now they're actually asking us our opinions. And as I mentioned, the UNR police force is asked us to be trainers for their police force. So we're involved in that. And it's quite a more metamorphosis.
What's a neophyte again? A radioactive bunny?
Yeah, with colors. Okay. That's a generally new, inexperienced person.
Okay.
That's generally a neophyte.
I thought it was the lost tribe of Israel.
Well, that could be a good thing in politics. I mean, it seems like the old cronyism is more of a damaging thing. I'd rather have somebody inexperienced with no ties monetarily that can actually be influenced by common sense.
Okay. Did you transfer some of whatever you're taking to Ben? Because that was a very intuitive statement he just made.
I agree.
I'm on that level. Always.
You're on that level. Cool. That's more or less what I was saying, is that these people are dying off, and there's a need for, in my cases, for a moderate, medium platform person. That's where we're taking up the slack, or filling the vacuum of white. So this is very, very interesting how things naturally mature.
Well, the more demands that are placed on you, you're getting more prominence, but no money.
Zero, and well, actually, I do have ancillary jobs that have come from my activism. So that's
like that survey job once a month that you do.
Right. Yeah, women's research survey through the church. The church. The College of Health Sciences at UNR. And so we've got women's research on lifestyles, how they affect lifestyles of HIV, things like that.
Women's what? There's a
survey.
It's a women's research study on how their lifestyles affect their lives, their health, psychological condition, HIV situation, things like that. We're compiling these. As a matter of fact, Friday we had a presentation of our findings thus far to the entire school. So that was basically the professorial part of the
So
school.
did all that research come with a recommendation?
That's
he
what
gets
we're working
paid
on right now.
like to work 2 hours a week for this organization. Collecting data.
Right. I do. It's a few hours a week, but it's basically just contacting on my end, contacting females to be respondent of the survey, but and also helping formulate the agendas, what we'll be looking at. But it's quite a project that we want to that we're on track to finding some kind of conclusion, but it's really kind of open-ended in answer to Ben's question. It's kind of just research information that will be presented to other medical studies. So scientists, they can.
I like statistics, but I always have to question the numbers. Like, I don't believe any of the polls because they're kind of nonsense. But the way that numbers are gathered that's important. And then I guess if you're collecting data on people whose livelihood has turned them into a victim, then I think there should be a recommendation or at least examples of success. So what's the difference between somebody with all these problems and somebody without all those problems? Who statistically is the same person.
And that's what we're looking at theoretically. We're seeing how it affects people of the same ilk to how they react to different external stimuli. and how.
Can you give us an example?
Well, I mean, primarily, like I said, it's health. We're looking to see if how health makes a difference in how health is a result of lifestyles. That's what we're doing. So that's what we're looking at, how your lifestyle develops your health and how that health manifests itself on your lifestyle, on your life. So it's kind of circuitous, closed in.
It doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like there'd be that much money in a study like that because it's already been done a million ways to Sunday.
Well, we're talking about minority. We're talking about all races. So if it's done months and Sundays, we would have not only African American or Hispanic as joining in the numbers. As it is now, we're talking about co-joined numbers for even though we are discerning the different races, we have them combined at the end. Ultimately, it hasn't been done yet, but we'll catalog them all together as women and their tendencies. So that'll help all the different organizations and.
Who's paying for the surveys?
This is the NSEA, which is our teachers union under the auspices of UNR, which is here, the University of Nevada, Reno, and the College of Health Sciences here. So we're doing that study to see just how relevant women's lifestyles are to their ultimate quality of life.
That seems impossible to get anything accurate. What's the goal? What are you trying to prove?
Wow, Ben. We're not trying to prove anything. That's the whole point. All we're trying to do is get awareness of the numbers, give awareness of the tendencies to academic scholars who want to add on or begin thesis of their own research. That's only one. That's one of our primary targeted.
Right, and you just said you'd break it up into the races, but I already know that's not going to be accurate. I mean, if you're going to break it up, you'd probably use the census way to break it up because that's the only way to get accurate numbers.
No, this is a survey that we are the originators of, and we're going out and making our own numbers. So what we're extrapolating is straight fact, straight from our research results. And not from anyone else.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though, but you're gonna break it down further. But white will be one category, right?
We'll have all the different categories, and ultimately at the end, we'll be able to conjecture what the others are doing, what all women and their tendencies.
Right. So what I'm saying about that not being accurate is if you wanted to be accurate, break up white as well into all the different kinds of white you could be. White nationality. Break it down to nationality. Then everybody's a minority. Because if you block people together like that and you create the smaller blocks and then you just say everybody else is in this block, you can create a minority any which way you want. And I think that's a big problem coming from the campuses. It's the way that people get put into certain blocks and groups, and you can't escape it.
I kind of see where you're going with that. Of course, that's an impossibility, especially at this time, because we haven't categorized the races in quite that detail. But I kind of see what you're saying in terms of everyone would be a minority.
Exactly. So I'm just saying to keep that in mind when you see statistics, because I always do. I always see that statistic, and since I'm grouped into a larger block of society, that I can't call myself a minority. But as soon as I start tracing my family tree back to a handful of countries, like, well, hold on, I'm mostly Irish and Scottish, and there's some Italian. So I basically have these three that make me this majority. But any one of those three singled out makes you another minority. You see how it's like not really fair to look at any of the numbers from my point of view, because I'm the largest block off to the side.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're more focused, I guess, on the just on the women, the different women's cultural distinction. I'm not sure about it. That's an interesting point, but I don't know if we're going to be able to do that right now. But
proven by history, though, obesity can be traced back to a smaller and smaller number of areas. Women's obesity can be traced back to some of the hardest hit countries of Europe, where there was starvation, where people actually massively died off of starvation. And it actually changed people's DNA to be able to retain more fats. And that's why you see an explosion in obesity, because that's gotten out of control and compounded by the chemicals in our food and the sugars.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that.
So that's where you get more accurate numbers, is actually when you trace the person's family back to whatever country they're from. You can actually learn a lot more about what the numbers mean when you single people out farther or narrower.
All right. Well, that sounds like it's something I might just ask the question and see what we're doing in terms of more of the dedication to raising up subsets.
Right.
John Yoder joined us.
All right. Well, tell John Yoder hi. I'm getting ready to go on the ride.
Okay. Tell him hi. Hi, John. How's it going?
Hello, Jane.
You're late, John.
You're
in my world, I'm early.
So, guess what we discovered tonight?
We discovered that Dawn helped transport weapons for other third world countries for revolution.
Close. We discovered that Stephen Paddock, the so-called lone Vegas shooter, was a gun runner between the U.S. and the Philippines for the Saudi government.
That's conspiracy. Alleged gun runner.
And that there were four floors at the Mandalay Bay that are owned by a Saudi prince who is kind of an outsider in his family, who was never elected to government posts. He's the 45th richest man in the world, and that his own private security was operating strongly that night of the Vegas mass shooting.
Wow.
Now we're waiting for Albert to say something so the CIA taps in on us.
There's
Oh,
always
man.
a web.
Well, you know, have you guys seen the latest on Tesla, the new semi-truck? They just announced about like 2 weeks ago. They just well, not announced, but literally they had a show, I guess, like a big show, and they brought out the semi trucks to everybody see. And
No, I didn't see it.
The
Yeah, I saw it.
thing on the Tesla trucks, they can reach 500-mile radius, and so people can, you can drive it all the way and make your drop off and then come back. And then they're also saying that the trucks are going to have like I think they say a 1,000,000-mile warranty. They were giving a 1,000,000-mile warranty, and I was like, what? Doesn't make any sense. It's a 1,000,000-mile warranty on these semi trucks. And then also too, what he announced on the Tesla semi trucks, right? That they're a lot more faster than the regular the diesel trucks. They can reach 0 to 60 and a lot quicker and freaking zero.
Are they running on electricity?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, electricity. Yeah, that's what Tesla's all about. And then
Cool.
We're cutting into a new topic, and you got the gist of the show's material. So I hope you enjoyed this topic. It's rather interesting. 50% speculation, 50% facts. That's what I'm going with. Thank you for joining us. Please listen to us at www.blogtalkradio.com/Tabernacle Faith. Watch out for the leaders of the world. They're not all who they seem to be.